Hi, my name is Joseph Rittenhouse. Welcome to the Valley of Fire, just north of Las Vegas. I'm back in the United States. I just came back from 7 months in Asia. I've been doing a lot of traveling. I spent 7 months from Europe to Asia last year, and then 7 months just in Asia just now, and then 21 days driving my Honda Civic from Los Angeles to Florida, Daytona Beach, back to Los Angeles. So in the last 24 months, I've had 14 months abroad and 1 month traveling around the United States. I want to share with you the idea of compounding experiences, and also how if you don't work a regular 9-to-5 job, you get to live more. The first idea, compounding experiences and exponential experiences is what I call it. And this is an idea that's math, but it's also social sciences. I'm more of a social science guy, but I understand math enough to get the idea, where if you have a number and you multiply it by a number, x times x, you get x squared. If you multiply x times x times x, you get x cubed. And the more you multiply things by each other, the bigger the effect. The more exponential things grow. And we don't know where they're going to grow to. They're just going to grow faster and faster and have a bigger result. I compare this to the types of experiences I have when I travel. And instead of talking about math here, we're talking about thoughts and feelings. The life I live, I'm a retired guy. I retired when I was 36 years old. I'm a landlord. So I make my money from property, from rental real estate. That means that I get to live a little bit differently. I don't need to be in one place working 9 to 5 for the same company. I can, as long as I have internet, that lets me have phone calls and email. And as long as I have online banking, I can transfer money from anywhere in the world. It's been a blessing that's given me a different type of life. And me as a social science type of guy, I've been making observations, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. There's time and distance when you travel. Some people, they can only travel so far. If they're working, maybe they get a week off every year or 2 weeks off every year. That limits the amount of time that you can be somewhere, the amount of time that you can spend getting there, and the distance of the place that you can go to. It might not seem like much, but because of the way I've been able to live, I've noticed that my experiences have been exponential, have been compounded, to where before I might have a few thoughts and a few emotions, and they react with each other. But when you can travel so far for so long and have so much time by yourself and be so introspective, things grow exponentially. What that means is you have so many new thoughts, they interact with so many new emotions, that they create so many new ideas and conclusions. And that's what you want, because to me life is thoughts and feelings mixing together. And the more of those, the more of the mixing, the more you're living. The person with the regular 9-to-5 job, they can't go too far. Some of the international flights to go to another country, for example, take 12 hours or maybe even 24 hours. So if you've only got 7 days off of work, it took you 12 hours to get there, 12 hours to get back on a flight, you've already spent up one of your days just in transit. And also the speed and amount of time that you can have to travel with also affects the type of experience that you have. Because I can travel very slowly, I don't have a time limit, I can take in each sight and each sound, I can try each food, each drink, I can look at every plant, I can look at all the architecture, and I can really take it in. And again, what's happening is I'm having many more thoughts and many more emotions. And those many more thoughts and those many more emotions are bouncing off of each other, which is allowing me to be more creative and come to more conclusions, which makes my life have some real depth, like really eating all the flavors of the world, really tasting all the architecture, all the beauty of the world, licking the earth like Picasso, I think he said that. I also think that when you get somewhere, there's different types of experiences you can have. You can have more of an active type of traveling. First of all, I don't even like to really say I travel. I really don't like the word tourist. I'm not a tourist. I'm just living. I just retired myself with rental real estate, and now I'm just living. And to me, this is living. This is normal living, not sticking in one place for 30 years. So to me, I just like to say that I'm moving around. I don't like to say I'm a tourist, that I'm traveling. But when I get where I'm going, I can experience that place in two different ways. Now, the average tourist, they might have to smash things into a schedule and have everything planned out. And I don't criticize that. That's probably the best thing you could do. If you've only got a limited amount of time, the best use of your time would be to have a plan, to follow the plan. Wake up at a certain time, go to a certain museum, go to a certain zoo, go to a certain tour, so that when you go back home, go back to work, that trip has had the maximum impact on your life. You got the maximum experience and benefit from that trip. But if possible, it would be nice if you wouldn't have to have things so scheduled out. When I get somewhere, I can do some active activities. I can go to a zoo, to a museum, to a tour. I love those things too. But I also get to experience a different kind of living, which is more passive. That would be more just enjoying the weather, the climate, sitting still. It's a different type of living. If I ask you about where you grew up, about the happy time, the beautiful time when you were growing up, you're probably not going to tell me about the museum or the zoo or the tour that you took. What you're going to tell me about is going to be the feeling of just being there, of when you were just playing ball in the yard, when you're having a barbecue with family, just riding your bicycle with no particular destination in mind, just going around. It's going to be, I'm from Southern California, and in Southern California there's a certain type of clouds, there's certain types of climate, a certain type of humidity. The mountains look a certain way, the wind feels a certain way. And when you ask me about growing up and the happiness about growing up, that's the first thing I'm going to remember is the feeling of just the wind and the color of the sun going down. So you can conclude that the same type of thing will happen to you if you can travel somewhere and you can just not have any plans for the day, not have a schedule for the day. Sometimes I have no bag, no camera. It's just me going out into the city with no particular plan. Then you build a different type of experience. If possible, I'd recommend that you do that. I also have this feeling that I'm living more. I didn't know how to explain it. I'm 38 years old and I thought, darn, I'm only going to live for about 40 more years. It's too bad I retired this late, and well, I'm going to try to spend my last 40 years really just taking it all in and enjoying it all. But then I would come back from a trip and I felt like the other people back home hadn't gone anywhere. They hadn't, it's like 6 months had passed for them, but things were still the same. And then I would come back and I would just feel like I had experienced so much, I had seen so much, and I felt like I was older. Now, I'm not going to get into philosophy, or there is some philosophy about this, but I'm still getting into it. But the idea is that I had more thoughts and emotions in the same amount of time than the person who is back home just going to work and going home. Now, I'm not saying, oh, my life is better. My life is great, but I'm getting technical here. Think about it. I go somewhere. I'm seeing all these different things. I'm feeling all these emotions in other countries and my country. I'm getting more thoughts and feelings bouncing off of each other. More new thoughts, more new feelings bouncing off of each other. So there's a compounding effect, an exponential effect there. So when I come back from a trip, either in the United States or from another country, I just feel like, oh, I lived so much. I experienced so much. And I see the people who didn't go anywhere, it seems like they're just still kind of in a pattern. So I do think there's some philosophy to that. But then just think about how many hours working people spend on work. They can't get too far away from work. And a large part of a working person's day revolves around either getting ready for work, stopping work, or resting from work. Maybe you work for 8 hours a day, but it takes you an hour to get to work. It takes you an hour to get home from work. So really it's like 10 hours a day devoted to work. But work affects all areas of your life. It affects your relationship with your spouse, who can do what, when, who's going to pick up the kids. Well, we can't take the kids here because you're working, I'm not working, or I'm working, you're not working, so I don't want you to go, you can't go. It has an inward-outward effect where that job just keeps everyone close. They can't go anywhere and they can't go very long. If you add it up, let's just say 10 hours a day times 5 days, that's 50 hours a week. But let's be honest here. The end of Sunday, you're getting ready for work on Monday. You got to be getting to bed early. And on Friday, you're just trying to disconnect from work. So that's another evening spent just in the process of disconnecting from work. Where Sunday, you spend the evening in the process of getting ready for work, organizing everything for the next work week. So it's not going to be just 10 hours a day times 5 hours, 5 days a week. It's going to be many more hours of your life that are involved in your work. Where on the other hand, someone like me, someone who can work from anywhere, they don't need to be working in an office, the whole day is spent slowly and doing things deliberately, just like travel. And in that sense, I do get to live longer because I get to have more new thoughts, more new feelings, seeing more, experiencing more, and those things get to multiply, which gives me more experience, gives me more depth of life. So two concepts for you: compounding effect of traveling further longer, the exponential effect of traveling further longer, but also how if you don't have to work 9 to 5, you get to have more life. And also a compounding effect there, because you get to spend more time with your spouse. Think about it this way. Let's look at it from some different perspectives here. It's as if your wife wasn't married. Say I got married today and I lived 40 more years. It's not as if my wife was married to me 40 years. It's as if my wife was married to me 60 years, because we got to spend all the time that we wanted to, without going crazy, all the time that we wanted to with each other. And think what kind of effect that would have on your kids, where normally maybe you get to see your kids for 2 hours a day after work and after their school. Everyone meets back home. You get a little bit of time together. But imagine what type of impact it would have on your children if you got to spend all day, any day, as much time as you wanted to with your kids. It's as if your kids had 3 parents. That's one way of thinking about it, because the time that they get to spend with you, they get more input from you. That's another way of thinking about it. Just think how much is going to get transmitted from you and your wife into your kids if you get to spend all day together. They're going to really learn a lot from you. And then in closing, I wanted to say 3 interesting things I found. One, these are little side notes. When I travel around, like in the United States, I come to places like this, like in the Valley of Fire. A lot of times, especially during the weekdays, you'll notice it's only older people, because younger people, they can't get too far away from their work, or they're tired, so they'll stay in their city. So a lot of times when I go traveling around, it's just me, a 38-year-old guy, and a bunch of married couples. It's really weird. That's just fascinating. When I saw that, I was like, this is weird. Like, what's going on here? And I'm like, oh, the young people, they can't get too far out. They don't have time to really explore. Which also, another thing I was going to tell you about was, it's interesting to note how some people will never even travel around their own hometown, their own city. I'm from Southern California, and it wasn't until I was retired that I really went out and started exploring. I don't know what it is. I guess people get into these ruts. They get into this go to work, go home rut, and they get tired and they don't really explore. So a lot of times when I go traveling around, I will go somewhere, like say for example, Valley of Fire. Then later I'll meet someone from Nevada. I'm not from Nevada, but I'll talk about Nevada. And I'll say, oh yeah, Valley of Fire, you've been there, right? Remember that? And they'll say, no, I've lived in Las Vegas for 10 years, I've never been there. I'm like, but it's like 30 minutes away. What do you mean you've never been there? And it's a weird phenomenon that happens. Also, an irritating thing is when I come to places like this, the people want to drive so fast. They want to drive like, in the national park, they want to be driving like 70 miles an hour, and they've got to knock things out really fast. And I don't criticize them if they've got a limited amount of time, which is probably what it is, but I'm just like, I wish that they could experience the kind of experience that I have, where it's more of a just look around and watch the rocks go by and look at all the different vegetation. So two concepts for you: compounding effect of life, exponential effect of life, x times x, time, distance. X times x is greater than just x. X times x is even greater than just x times x. That third x being the new thoughts, the new emotions. So you x distance, x time spent traveling somewhere, times new thoughts and new feelings. You have a compounding effect, an exponential effect. And then think about it. If you don't have to work every day, how much more time you get to spend with your family. From Valley of Fire in Nevada. I will talk to you later.